Hey everybody, thanks for listening to yet another episode of the world's okayest mountain bike podcast. And today Kyle and I are out of our element, that's for sure, because we're going to be talking cross-country, marathon, long-distance racing. And to do that, we have brought in, that's right, we have brought in a local legend, a KOM king, if you will. If you're a St. Louis local, probably a Midwest cross-country person, I guarantee you've heard this guy's name, even though I'm not actually sure how to pronounce his last name myself. So I'm going to say it, and then he can correct me if I'm wrong. But we've got Brian Roggeveen. Is that right?
Yeah, Roggeveen.
Roggeveen, so it wasn't right. He's too nice to tell me I'm an idiot, but we'll get there.
Roggeveen, potato.
What's your name? So anyway,
I've known him for probably 7-8 years, and I pronounced it like you did, Clinton. So
I was gonna say, man, I've seen that name on a lot of tickets, and I could have swore it was Roggeveen. I know better.
Any apologies, Brian?
Roggo.
All right, well, we've already set the record straight for one thing. Now, I cornered Brian out at Council Bluff Lake last weekend on Friday night before the actual race. I was just out there hanging out, doing Matt's little downhill stage. I think like 3 people did it, maybe. I don't know. But I cornered Brian and asked him to come on the pod, and he agreed. And then I proceeded to talk his ear off for like that point in the conversation where you can tell the other person like they've got things to do. Well, I detected that and proceeded to I recognized that and then proceeded to go ahead and keep talking to him for like another 10 minutes. So sorry,
Clinton's
Brian.
really good at that, though, to be fair.
I mean, once you start talking bikes, it's hard to stop.
But we totally geeked out.
Yeah, I do. We brought Brian on because we got requests to do like some cross country content, and I'm not opposed, but I'm certainly no expert. I did the Battle of Berryman in 2019, and I did a 7-mile cross country race on Kyle's Trek Remedy earlier this year.
Best bike ever.
That's about all I've ever done.
I think we got a lot of requests for this kind of a podcast. Big local race, Berryman BT Epic is coming up. What is that? 2 weeks, Brian?
Yeah, 2 weeks from Saturday.
Yeah, so.
Now, Brian, are you racing this year?
I am. I think I've only missed a couple of them early on, so that's definitely a highlight of the season. Kind of put a cherry on top of it.
Brian,
yeah, I would say it's the best race. Best race in that kind of distance category. I mean, bottom line, it's probably the best race in Missouri.
You think so?
Yeah, I mean, how many years they've been doing it now? 12 years maybe. And Scott and I guess Jake, but Scott really built it up into a monster now. I mean, you're getting people from all over the country coming in. He keeps bumping up his entry limits, bumping up the prizes. It's a big party afterwards. Definitely. If you've never been, put it on your calendar. It's a great race, great trails, and then a great way to end the season. It's almost always one of those perfect fall days to hang out afterwards.
Yeah, that's as good as mountain biking in Missouri gets, man. Is October, November. That's the prime season for mountain biking in the Midwest for sure.
Most definitely. I mean, if you look at my Strava stats and look at the whole year, there's just huge chunks of time spent in October, November, into December even.
Yeah.
It's hard to turn it off when the weather's so nice like that.
And the leaves start dropping and everything, man.
Yeah.
So, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, you've won this race before, have you not?
I have not. No.
You have not? Okay.
I've been able to do that. No.
What's your best finish at a BT Epic?
My best finish was maybe third.
Okay, well, that's still legit.
Is 2020 the year?
No, definitely not. I mean, seriously, like I had a pretty good run there. You know, if you've been there, one of the little things he does is he would put like the top 10 finishers' names on the T-shirt from the previous year.
Okay.
So that was always, that was always kind of a little bonus, pushing you in that year to be on the T-shirt for next year. And now he's added, I think, the top 3 female finishers as well. So yeah, last year I finished 11th, worst spot to be. Finally fell off the T-shirt. Had a pretty good run there. But
now you just.
The point being that the competition, I've kind of like steadily either matched my times from previous years or gotten a little bit better each year. But it's all about who shows up, and who's showing up. It's just getting faster and faster.
Yeah, I mean the word's getting out how awesome the race is, right, Brian? And so these people are starting to come in from all over. I'm disappointed. I spent several years doing cross country, 14, 15, 16, and this is a race that I've never done, and kind of like, man, I'm not in any shape, but man, I just one of these years I'm going to get out and do it because everybody says how fun it is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, here, so Brian, you could probably talk, and Ezra Clinton might be able to too. So for the people listening who aren't familiar with the race, what is the mileage? What's the train like? I mean, what is the race?
Yeah. So it's always been roughly 50 miles. They changed the course a few years back. So I'd say maybe add a little bit more. Well, I wouldn't say more. Just kind of changed up the trail a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's usually right around 50 miles, a mixture of gravel and trail, Ozark Trail. It's always started and ended at Bass River Resort. If you've ever been down Steelville way to go on a float trip on the Huzzah, it's one of the big places down there. Their place is right on the Codaway. And they've been a real good partner, to the race. Always been very welcoming to the mountain biking community. Stephen Bass, who passed away, I don't know, a year or two ago, but he was always a big fan. Would show up pre-race meetings and the post-race and offer preems for the first one off the gravel into the woods. But it always starts off with a long gravel climb, where things you have a good opportunity to kind of stretch things out and sort things out before you get into the single track. And then, I'm going to say maybe 5 miles of OT before you hit the Berryman Loop proper. Start heading around clockwise, up through Brazil Creek, and then around to Berryman Campground. And then with this latest kind of incarnation of the race route, you just keep going around the Berryman Loop, finish that loop back to where you entered onto the loop. You do a full loop, and then kind of start backtracking, and then pop out on some gravel, have another maybe 3 miles of gravel before you pop back in on the Ozark Trail, now heading back towards Bass. Great long, like 2 mile descent, one of the best descents down there on the Ozark Trail. But then you pay for that. You have to go through the Three Sisters, which, if you've heard anyone talk about that, they're probably not saying anything nice about them. It's just 3 brutally steep climbs, one right after the other, before it spits you back into the Bass property, where you do some like open field and some gravel, kind of coming back to where you started the race, where you can do another feed. And then you head out on one last loop up through pavement, gravel, out to the other end of the Ozark Trail. And then, nice, well, I'd say nice. There's still a couple more brutal trail climbs back there to get through. Maybe like, I want to say 4.5, 5 miles of single track back down to Bass and the finish. So, I mean, you look at like the winning times, they're right around like the 4-hour mark now. So it gives you an idea of
4 hours for, oh my gosh.
That's a brutal pace. 50 miles in 4 hours. And what kind of, about 5,000 feet of climbing, Brian?
Yeah. But pretty much everything you do down there is going to give you 100 feet per mile at least.
Yeah.
I think my fastest time around the Berryman Loop is like 3 hours and 5 minutes or something like that. Like, and that's
just
half
for the loop.
distance. It's literally half the distance of this race. I can't imagine.
Brian,
Yeah, I mean the gravel is definitely giving you a bump on the average speed,
Okay.
but there's still I would say probably close to like 40-10 kind of split, so still a significant amount of trail you're doing and doing that 12.5 miles per hour.
Yeah.
So you just finished last weekend. It's probably some people listening won't know. We just had a race called the One-Eyed Dog, and you did. I'm assuming you did the 100-mile.
I did, yeah.
How'd that go for you?
It went pretty well, I'd say. My goal for the day. This is the second year that Matt has put this race on. It used to be called the OT 100.
Mm-hmm.
Jim Davis and the OTA were, more focused on putting it on. It was a little bit different. It was point to point, where you just did 100 miles of all single track on the OT, ending at Bass again, but you started 100 miles to the south. So now the new format is starting at Council Bluff campground and heading out to the OT, ride the OT up to Berryman, do a lap of Berryman, come back on the OT the way you came. When you get back to Council Bluff, then you got to do, you've probably only done a mile of the loop at that point,
Mm-hmm.
so you got to finish that lap and climb back up to the campground. So it's kind of a brutal finish. But, I think both of those courses were equally brutal. I can't really pick which one was worth. They both had their pluses and minuses. And you look at the finish times, I think they're fairly similar. But anyway, so this second year, I did it last year. It was even warmer, more humid. We got rained on. It got even more humid. Just a miserable day for me. Those aren't my peak operating conditions, especially when you're out there for 10 or 11 hours. So, the weather was slightly better this year. It was still warm, but it wasn't nearly as humid. Didn't get the rain, just kind of slowed the trail down. It was very fast, dry, loose, dusty. But, so my goal going in was just to finish the race feeling much better than I did last year. Last year was probably 2 or 3 hours where it was just a death march, just trying to finish the race, and not concede too many positions. This year I just wanted to finish feeling good, so mission accomplished on that. 100-mile race, you don't really do a whole lot of racing. It's just you race against yourself.
And see, I think that's something about this kind of racing that I think I'm more apt to do, maybe not a 50 or 100-mile race, but to do like a lap at Berryman in a race setting, because if you then you could just think of it as like just a day out on the bike, maybe trying to go a little faster than I normally would. Exactly. And just have a good time. Whereas, maybe in a traditional cross country race, it's a little tighter, it's shorter. And so you see those people and you're going to finish, but you're kind of putting yourself into a little bit higher of a heart rate or intensity zone.
Oh yeah. It's not
longer.
day,
yeah.
Those two, to a certain degree, the Berryman Epic, heart rate wise, I'm probably averaging in the low to mid 170s for a Berryman Epic, and maxing out in the 180s. So it's almost like a short cross country race, like a Cat 1 cross country race. If you're up at the front, and then you're just you're just holding on for dear life at the end to try to finish it off, right, without cramping too badly. Whereas, everyone's got their different approaches. Endurance, 100-mile kind of race, and it's all relative, right? You the top pros, in the NUE can kind of take that same mindset into a 100-mile race. You look at one and they truly are, racing in a pack at the front of the race, right? I mean, they're racing together most of the day. They're marking each other. They're making moves. They're reacting to each other. It looks like a cross-country race. Whereas for me, if I were to do that, I think I'd be paying too much for it later on in the race. Just lessons learned over time as to what you are and aren't capable of. And when you're out there that long, it's not worth burning all those matches early on, knowing that you've got so much longer to go and hold on. I'd rather just kind of stay within myself for most of the day and then try to make a race out of it in the last couple hours. And, just keep telling myself the race is in front of me. It's not behind me. If people are coming up, I'm not going to do anything to try to match their pace or intensity. Got to race my own race for the first, 2/3, 3/4 of the race. And then if everything's still feeling good at that point, okay, now it's time to, right? So just trying to limit that window of, kind of raciness, to the end when you can actually make a difference and start picking rather than going out hard early, trying to match other people's pace. And then at the end of the race, just kind of holding on for dear life.
Brian, if I can jump in, I think for most people, an ultra endurance race is mostly about the accomplishment. At least early on. I did 2 years of the OT 100. Yep. I believe it was the first year Jim did it, and the second year. And the first year for me was just finishing. Like, can I just finish before morning? I'm like in the 24-hour cutoff or whatever. And so did that. Obviously didn't take near that long, but still was 16 hours. And then, coming back the second year, it wasn't, I want to finish top 3 or anything. And I think, I knew I wasn't capable of that, but it was like, can I knock, 2 or 3 hours off my time?
Yeah.
And for me, it was all about accomplishment, and I think for a lot of people in that endurance, it's hard for any human being to kind of get in that stage. I'm going to race this thing for 10, 12, 13 hours, whatever that ends up being. So you kind of got to pace yourself, know your strengths and weaknesses. And that's kind of what I learned from it. So.
Like I said,
kind of same thing.
Definitely. Like I said, it's all relative, and the more you do it, the more your goals change. But definitely, when you start out, goal number one is finishing, and even as you progress, that's still always the number one goal, right? You've done all that training, you don't want to not finish the race, but to a certain degree, I think if you really want to win or podium sometimes, then you just have to go in with that mindset that I'm willing to sacrifice finishing the race potentially, right? To be racing against people at the front of the race and having that kind of intra race, back and forth with the people up there, and then if that means you blow up and don't finish the race, then you have to be willing to live with that.
Sure.
But it's all about different goals, right? As you progress.
So I'm wondering something. I think I would be interested in hearing, because I only have, well, I guess I have 2 bikes technically. I have a dirt jump bike and I have an enduro bike. But basically, my enduro bike's my only mountain bike, so I'm like a 1 bike quiver guy. So it'd be interesting to me. We're kind of bike geeks on here. Yeah. Tell us about sort of your bike setup, what you run, and maybe the kit you take. How you take multiple water bottles, what kind, spare tube, whatever it is that's like you're doing either 100 or 50-mile race. What's your bike? What are your tires? Yeah. We love tires here, by the way. Like, tires is my favorite subject.
Clinton loves tires here.
Speaking of which,
and I'm going to back up his question too and kind of just ask, what change, how much of a difference or how much of a change is there between doing like the BT Epic and then doing a 100-miler? Does your setup change pretty dramatically based on that, like those 2 mileages?
Yeah.
Don't mind me just showing off my brand new still in the packaging Vittoria Mazda in Enduro casing tires that I'll be throwing on for the Sequatchie Enduro beginning in November down in Tennessee. So just so excited.
I tend to keep the tires pretty simple myself. Like, I've got several bikes that I ride in any given week or month, and I like the ability, as things break, to kind of have that interchangeability from one bike to another, whether it be the wheels themselves and the spacing of the hubs and what cassette and drivetrain are on there, and the brake disc rotors. And so, I mean, for the most part, tires, I just run Bontrager XR3s. I used to run 2.4 in the front and 2.3 in the back. I think they've now, they're only doing like 2.2 and 2.4, but the 2.4 is more like a 2.3. So I guess I really haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do in reaction to that. So right now I'm just running those 2.4s like front and back, the XR3s. I am kind of digging their new tread pattern. It's a little more low profile down the center, a little less rolling resistance. I think that suits my riding style a little better.
Now, what bike do you have these on? What is your go-to race weapon?
So right now it's a Top Fuel.
Okay.
The latest Top Fuel, like a 9.
And I've seen it. It's sweet. It's all red, like nice, pure red, not like a radioactive orangey red or whatever. It's just red. I mean,
like the Trek Factory Racing color.
It's the Trek Factory Racing paint job. Yeah.
No, that's a pretty bike.
Very nice.
I like the red, but
now,
I mean, for me,
it
was
was
a game changer. Yeah, having the dual lockout. I mean, that's pretty good game changer for cross country racing around here, to be able to just go back and forth, like literally that 100-mile race, every climb, lock it out, every descent, open it up. It's great. Yeah.
So you're locking it out on the Ozark Trail, which, I mean, I haven't ridden all of it. I think I have ridden from pretty well from Council Bluff up to Berryman. One year a buddy and I, we swept that section. But it's gravelly, and there's spots where
it's great trail. It just doesn't see any traffic. But it's in great shape right now.
But a lockout, so on the Top Fuel, does it lock out both front and rear when you use it?
Yeah.
And so, but that's not really an issue climbing, even when there's like roots and like loose rock and that kind of stuff.
No, I don't think there's anything too crazy technical on the on the Ozark Trail. I mean, there's probably a couple little steps here and there, but yeah, I haven't had any problems. I mean, honestly, I've kind of ridden them all over the years. I even spent a long time racing a full rigid, with a carbon front fork. Did that for a year. I remember like racing like marathon at Greensfelder with that bike, and now I ride Greensfelder and I'm like, what the hell was I thinking? Like, that's just stupid. But it's like it went through a phase. Like all the single speeders were riding full rigid, big, bouncy tires. I don't know.
I remember that phase.
We got to get Steve Friedman on this podcast to talk about single speeding.
Yeah,
he's next.
He'd be our next guest. Time. But I mean, even like when I was doing the NUE races, I did almost all of them on a hardtail Superfly, with probably 80 or 100 meter, probably an 80 mil front fork. Yeah. And even that or like Breck Epic, the first year I did that, 6-day stage race in the mountains, just crazy stuff that you're riding through, whether it's the roads or the trails. I look back and think, how did I do this on a hardtail? I don't know.
So you're full suspension committed now.
Yeah, I've seen the light as I got older.
And then it's for everybody too who doesn't know, the Top Fuel is for this year. It's a 110, 120 bike. Is that what it is now?
115,
Yes.
I think.
I think it's 115 in the back, 120 in the front.
Yeah, it's 115.
Okay.
I saw it. You looked it up the other day. I'd love to have one, but
It's on my list too. I'd like to have one as well.
It's a crazy.
It's a fast bike.
It is so perfect for around here. And
Yeah.
I was telling Clinton over the weekend that, honestly, that's the bike that I wanted to buy 3 or 4 years ago when I bought that Fuel EX. And, Trek just didn't have anything in that sweet spot in between the Fuel EX and Top Fuel back then was like 100.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's a totally different bike now.
Yeah, I'd been doing a lot of training down the OT on a Remedy, a 29-inch Remedy that was, I think 140, 130. And then
It should have been a 140 bike back then.
Yeah, I think it was 140 both ends back then.
Okay. And then like going back and forth between that and like a 100 tall boy, and I was getting myself in trouble. I'm like, I need a different race bike. It's just two drastically different reactions. When you're bombing down certain sections, it definitely didn't react the same. So I
remember
something in
that
between.
Yeah. I had one similar, and it was
Yeah, I've got a buddy who's still riding one. He just busted up his derailleur. He's been talking about buying a new bike for literally the last 3 years since I moved home and started riding with him. But you're not running a dropper post though, I don't believe.
No. I've just been riding for so long without one that I've had bikes with it and I've tried it, and I think it just need more time with it. I just couldn't get used to it. Like I've gotten so used to descending with the nose of the saddle in between my legs and kind of pinching that with my legs and being able to maneuver the bike in that way. And I've never had any problems with, bottoming out on the seat, although, I'm not doing anything too crazy.
Right.
So
just 100 miles at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
Like,
that's crazy enough.
That sounds crazy to me.
I'm not jumping off anything. I'm not,
So what do you take with you on what'll be on your body and bike at the BT Epic? Wait, he's frozen. Is he still there?
Yeah, he's still there. I'm curious about snacks too. What's your snack regimen look like on a 50 or 100 miler? Like, what's your frequency, and what do you shoot for like in-ride snacks?
So, like anywhere up to like 8 hours, I'm strictly liquid. So I just do Hammer products like Heat and Perpetuum, electrolytes or Endurolytes, mixed with water. That's it. I just try to, depending on the weather, kind of vary the liquid intake anywhere from maybe 16 to 20 ounces an hour. And I just try to keep it simple. Like I know like every 15 minutes I looking at my Garmin, right? 15 minutes, time to drink, right? And know like how many sips times 4 is going to finish that bottle of whatever I've got. So it just varies. I mean that's kind of the base plan, and then so each race varies depending on the length and what the amenities are out on the race course. Right? So on the one end of the spectrum, you got like something like Breck Epic where you're doing anywhere from I would say 3.5 to 5.5 hours for me a day, and they'll have several aid stations, so you get to drop aid bags in the morning. So I'll mix up all my bottles in those bags, and they'll be sitting there waiting for me. And it's always so nice and cold out there that it's going to be. I'll still have ice in the bottle from the morning, and it's not going to sour on you. And they got really good aid station volunteers where they're calling you out as you come in. So by the time you get to your bags, somebody's out there with your bag, and they've already taken the bottles out of their bag, and they're about, it's like a NASCAR pit stop. You're in and out.
No, that's awesome.
Everywhere from that to, races that, basically you only guarantee is that there's going to be some form of water, every so many miles. So, something like that, I'll mix up like baggies.
I've done that for a super hot enduro race in the middle of July last year in Arkansas. I had it was very similar. I was looking at my watch, thirsty or not, every 15 minutes, drinking, had Ziploc baggies of, had some Scratch Labs and another like BCAA electrolyte mix.
And Little Debbie's.
Ready to go.
Yeah,
I wish I had the Little Debbie's with me.
Just keep it simple. The less thinking you have to do, especially in short of the race, the harder it is to think. Just keep it simple. And that's what I do on my training, right? It's just every 15 minutes, just become a habit. But those races, pre-mix your mix in baggies, and then I'll put like some of those feed bags from I can't remember the name of the company up in Alaska that makes like bike packing bags.
Okay.
But I just got a couple bags on the bars that I'll throw those in. So I know an aid station is coming up. I can take the bag out and be ready to go to drop it in the bottle and have them fill it up with water, and off you go.
So, I mean, you've been racing for a long time. Have you settled into a pre-race meal the day before? I mean, what did you have, like kind of a go-to day before race day eating schedule at all, or what you like to what will agree with you for the next day?
I usually keep it simple for me. Just it goes back to, I think when I was doing marathon running, it was like always like the carb loading. And it always worked for me there. I kind of brought that over to mountain bike endurance racing. So I just keep it simple, just pasta and red sauce.
Pasta and red sauce, that spaghetti stuff.
Yeah,
see, I've got to figure something out, boys, because I can't do that. I have an egg intolerance, and pretty much every pasta it's flour and egg,
Yeah.
Clinton grew up on an egg farm, by the way. We don't know how this happened.
My family, we had a huge egg production facility when I was like from before I was born until 99, I think. That's when we got out of the egg business. But yeah, I found out I didn't eat eggs a ton growing up. I didn't like them. I started eating them in college and started eating them a lot when I met my wife and we got married because she'd fix them all the time. But I also found myself at many times like having to find a bathroom now. And I couldn't figure out.
That's a bad thing for race day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I sent in a blood sample and had a blood test done, and turns out eggs, almonds, and sunflower seeds, and then some grain. It's not very common in the U.S. The only place I've ever seen it is that Dave's Killer Bread, the brand Dave's Killer Bread. They have like I don't know which one it is. It's called Kamut or Camus, but sometimes it's called like Middle Eastern something grains. Like it grows in like Afghanistan or somewhere. But yeah, those 4 things my body just can't digest. So that's made it a real challenge to find the right stuff.
Yeah. Rice.
Brian, you mentioned
rice, all right.
You mentioned a minute ago running marathons. So a lot of us are probably curious. What is your background? How long you been mountain biking? Like, give us the lowdown on Brian Roggeveen.
I mean, I started mountain biking, I would say, in the mid-90s. Not mountain bike racing. I didn't really start mountain bike racing until, I would say, maybe 10, 11 years ago. Yeah, I mean, I grew up, playing all the traditional sports, baseball, soccer, basketball. Soccer was kind of my thing. And, kind
you
of
just like being in a pain cave, don't you?
I deal with pain well, I guess. I mean, it was weird. Like when you played those sports, like running was like a punishment. It was like a torture. Like you did something bad, oh, go run a lap around the field. So it's like they made you hate running. And then, I went through college and just kind of got sedentary, started working, and honestly saw a coworker having success training and running for a marathon. My first job out of college. I was like, well, shit. I mean, if she can do that, I can do that. And just like, oh, I wonder like what it would take to do that, and just kind of started slowly building myself up to run Chicago, or I guess St. Louis Marathon one year. It'd be like 2003 maybe. Yeah, I think it was right before I got married, because I got measured for my tux before I got married, and then spent 4 months running and losing all kinds of weight. And by the time I went to look at my tux, it wouldn't fit, way too big. But I mean, running, it's amazing how quickly you can lose weight compared to other endeavors. But yeah, so I got real big into marathon running from like 2003 to 2009 maybe. Ran Chicago several times, St. Louis, qualified for Boston, wound up hurting myself training for Boston, but went up there and ran it anyway. Like a pinched sciatic nerve. So I was kind of on the DL after that for several months, trying to figure out what the problem was, how to fix it. I think at that point I kind of stepped away from it a little bit and happened to go out to Utah and southern Utah, visit a friend out in Salt Lake City. We did a little trip, did some mountain biking, Moab, North Rim of the Grand Canyon, kind of reignited a passion for mountain bike. I never stopped riding. I still had the bike that I had from back in the mid 90s. And so I never stopped riding, but it definitely reignited my passion. And then not being able to run, I was looking for alternate things to do, and just slowly started moving that needle from one discipline to the other. It's like I didn't want to give up the running. I still kept running. I was doing I tried an Xterra triathlon down in Eureka Springs. I was doing duathlons. I did Berryman duathlon a couple of times. But yeah, it's like every time I'd run more and more, I would get hurt. And bike racing, it was just much more intriguing and captivating at the time. So just went full bore into that. Actually went into road racing. So I did.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
When I first started, I mean, I would do like a mountain bike race here and there, but I was all in on the road racing and moved my way up to like Cat 3 and just had enough crashes and crits that I had enough, and I just wanted to focus on mountain bike racing where if I crashed, I knew it'd be my fault, right? Not because some 18-year-old kid was chopping my front wheel off.
So something I want to talk about, because before we get too far into time, when I was talking to you out at Council Bluff, some of the things you were saying, other than the fact I was noticing that like I was making the conversation go way too long, but is that you seemed like you have as far as I can tell, like a genuine, love and concern for the state of cross country or long distance racing. And so I wanted to give you time to kind of talk, maybe, I don't know, sort of make your plea. I don't want to say make your case, because, but just like why people need to, even if they're just casual, there's shorter distances, right? You don't have to do 100 miles. You don't have to do 50. At the One-Eyed Dog, you could have done 11. You could have done 22. I think 11's pretty manageable for any level if given enough time.
Yeah. I mean, after the race, I was talking to people that like don't even mountain bike that, managed to make their way around Council Bluff, people that were runners. but their husband's a mountain biker, and you know, if she made it around Council Bluff, and went, you know. But I mean, yeah, you look at like the UFD races that we've got here. You know, there's always a beginner class that tries to focus on, you know, a lap distance or a race length that is going to put people right around an hour, right? You know, that's kind of a nice introduction. Or you got the dirt crits in the summertime, right? That are, you know, might be like 20 minutes of all out effort. But, you know, it's just, for, you know,
I enjoyed the dirt crits.
Yeah, they're fun.
Yeah.
And again, it's you know, at the end of the day, I think what brings a lot of us to any of these races, regardless of, you know, the type or discipline category, is the community and you know, being able to hang out with like-minded people afterwards and making friendships. So, you know, I'm never going to dog on any one particular discipline, right? To me, they're all good. It's all good people, and it's getting people outside, getting people on bikes, getting people more interested in the outdoors and trails. You know, so to me, that's a win regardless of what the discipline is. You know, it's just, you know, me as a more of a cross country enthusiast, what I see, you know, from my armchair is just see it out on the trails, you know, too, and the bikes that are being sold, right? Just definitely a movement toward longer travel bikes and just kind of the emergence of enduro type of races. And again, there's nothing wrong with it, you know, but you know, I guess the question is, is cross country losing people, or is enduro just bringing people in that, you know, never were into cross country? I don't know what cross country is, right?
Yeah.
You know, is it just a matter of introducing people that are doing enduro, and that's the only thing they know, to what, you know, cross country, you know, might bring to the table for them.
And I think, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you did.
But to your point, I think enduro, I don't think it has to be an either or, because for someone like me, you know, I didn't start riding mountain bikes till late 2015, early 2016, and I think my first race was February of 2017. And I got into enduro because I came from a motocross background, and from the description I read about enduro, this turned out really not to be that true. But with my skill set that I already had, even with my what I would say was a low level of fitness, I thought I could still go to this race and have fun and maybe do okay, because it's supposed to be, you know, it's downhill racing.
Right.
Turns out there's a lot more
Well, yeah,
climbing
that's
and
the
all
other
that.
thing is I think there's a misconception that,
But
you know, that it doesn't take a lot of fitness to do it, or, you know, that it's just downhill and that's it. You know, obviously around here, you know, I think if you want to be successful at it, you definitely have to have a high level of fitness. You know.
the
You have to be able to.
The smaller the hills are, the more fit you have to be, because they're going to try to stretch those courses out, and that means flat and climb. But just
and
getting
it's
into
not just it is downhill, but it's not just like they don't just time like a casual descent. Like the guys that win are putting power down the entire time.
You're pedaling downhill
No.
till you're spun out, basically.
Yeah, the whole time.
And if I can jump in, guys, a lot of times the guys that we've seen win these are very strong cross country racers.
Oh, absolutely.
Very strong.
What I was kind of getting at is, as my fitness grew from just riding in general and stuff, I certainly became more, even though I started out as like an enduro only guy, I certainly became way more open to just longer rides, doing a longer race, doing a cross country race. And really the only thing that kept keeping me away from it was the fact that I only have one bike, and I don't really want to spend the money on a second.
Yeah.
But then, like, for example, this summer, and this is something I think they're going to keep doing here locally, is these cross country races added like the big hitters class. And I think that's pretty well going to settle on, like, if your suspension averages out to like 150 millimeter front and rear, and that's your bike, that's what you race. I don't think we'll have a ton of people doing that, but I love to race, but I want my disadvantage to be because I'm not fit or at my best, not an equipment disadvantage, like a major equipment disadvantage. And so I think, some of the enduro guys are certainly, I think we can see a lot of cross discipline. It's just we might have to adjust, make that extra class for people that we don't have a top fuel. We've got a slash. Guys have a common sawl or whatever, aluminum 35-pound bike.
Yeah.
And they still want to race, but they don't want to be racing against people on, 24-pound hardtails or whatever.
No,
24. That's heavy.
Good point.
Yeah. But I think, I know there's people like, I just ride for fun, racing, I think everybody should at least race some discipline at some point, because even if you have no desire, like no ambitions on winning or whatever, because there is something different about knowing that you're in a situation where you are truly out there to do your best. There's a stopwatch on you. There's other people around you to compare yourself with, that just changes that day of racing. And like, you feel so good when you're done, kind of regardless of how you finish, to be honest with you, especially in this kind of racing. I don't know how many people that listen to us have never raced, but I'm like a huge advocate of at least go try it once, some kind of race.
Yeah. There's probably, I think back to my very first mountain bike race. I think it was at St. Joe State Park. I think it was Mark's race down there.
Literally rode there last night.
Yeah.
Mark's
several
great.
years ago, I think I showed up with, to a certain degree, my point is that there's a bit of an intimidation factor sometimes, like, of the unknown, and, am I gonna get laughed out of the place, right? And if people only knew the community, right, they would know that they couldn't be further from the truth, right? I mean, it's very inclusive and supportive.
I mean, basically the only thing that's not cool in this community is being a cool guy. Like, like if you cool guy people, then that's not cool. But
yeah.
Brian, if I can add, we're getting a lot of kids in mountain biking right now, cross country. Cool. So NICA's really gonna bummed this year we didn't get to race.
Yeah, I mean, that's a total bummer. I mean, just this year just sucks.
But I'll tell you what, I started with Charles' team out here and we got about 25 kids in the program, and it's just super cool to see a lot of these kids who, quite honestly, probably just started riding a bike in the last year or two, and seeing them overcome some challenges, that probably all four of us on this podcast and many of our listeners look at and go, you don't even think about it being a challenge, but to see them conquer that, and then to go, man, now craving to race and can't this year. So like, they're already asking about next year. Like, can't wait. So
that's awesome.
It's super cool to see the kids. And I think for me, obviously I'm kind of like Clinton, that my background's moto. But I started mountain biking in cross country. But I think it'll be important, and I tell my kids this at NICA, that at NICA practices we kind of discourage jumping and wheelies and all that kind of stuff, but we tell them that it's important to go do that. You need to do that on your own time. That's mainly for insurance reasons, but we really do as coaches, like, we encourage it. We encourage them to go to the pump track or the BMX track, and like, if you're riding a bike, it's going to help your skills.
Exactly.
I think
totally. More butts on bikes.
Yeah, in our community, like you said, and for people who may be listening or think just getting into riding, like, don't be shy. Show up anywhere and talk to people, and everybody's going to be cool to you. That's what I found. That's why I found the love of mountain biking when I left moto. It's just
yeah, I will say the mountain
community.
bike community in general, especially enduro, and even the cross country I've been to, I feel like it's a little more social.
The community is the only good thing
moto.
about racing.
maybe moto's a little more, since you're literally racing head to head. I mean, you line up within inches of the other people. Maybe there's a little more reason there to like you have your competitors. You're not necessarily buddies with everybody. Not everybody necessarily wants to talk to you. Like, I'm pretty social, and that was something that used to bum me out in the moto world.
Don't talk to me.
Exactly.
The gate's gonna drop. Don't talk to me.
But in mountain biking, man, it doesn't matter how fast you are. Like, I personally haven't ran into anybody on a mountain bike that's kind of given me that vibe. Yeah, I think you're dead on. The community is absolutely beginner friendly. Like, you'll find someone, it might be me if I'm there and you're like, this is my first race. I'll give you pointers. If it's cross country, you might not want my pointers, but enduro, I probably can help you out.
But no, it's true though. I mean, the community is the best thing about it. So I'm a very non-racer. Like, I raced mountain bikes in college, but like I got
into races.
I know,
but like, so go from time to time.
And I enjoy it. But what I enjoy about the races though, unless it's dual slalom, four cross, or like, a casual BMX race with other guys in 26-inch bikes, like the competition side of it, I just don't care. But I love going to races, and I'll go spectate mountain bike races. Even like mountain bike racing isn't like wildly good for spectating because you kind of don't get to see much of it. But like watching mountain bike races, and even like my favorite thing about doing a race is just sitting at the start gate, waiting for the beep, for the gun to go off, and like sitting and just chatting with everybody, talking to watching everybody's kind of pre-race thing. What are you doing? How's the bike doing? What you changed today? Like, everything about the community is what makes racing even like somewhat enjoyable for me.
Yeah, I think it's how do you let prospective people know that, and convince them that that it is so welcoming. Yeah, just got to keep getting the word out.
If I can share some insight that's kind of maybe a little pat on the back to Brian and just the mountain bike community in general. But I did my first year mountain biking. I don't know what I was thinking, but I found out about that race, the OT 100. And I had only been mountain biking for like 3 months when they announced the race. That maybe it was a little crazy, but that's a race that started at sunrise at 6:20 something in the morning, and here midnight comes and I finally finished, so 16 hours in, and man, there was 30-40 people standing around the bonfire, racers like yourself that have been done for 6 hours, Brian, that come up and just high five you, toss you a beer.
It's a huge accomplishment.
Yeah, good job. And I even remember a gal that year, the next morning when we were getting ready to do awards. So 24 something hours after the start, she comes pulling in.
Yeah.
I mean, this girl finished, and I mean, the cheers for this girl when she was approaching Bass Campground was unreal. Like, what an accomplishment she did, not giving up, and just so if I can, like, it gives me chills thinking about it right now. It's pretty cool. But that's the mountain bike community in general. Just everybody. It doesn't matter if, Brian, finishing, top 3 or whatever, or the person that finishes, dead last, but finishes, everybody's there to give them a high five, which is cool.
Yeah. And I can say that spirit is still alive and well. Over the weekend, it's not, he's not giving you 24 hours like Jim did to finish, but I mean, we did have several people finish after dark with lights on, and a lot of us, stayed around the bonfire until that last person came in and gave him a round of applause and a place on the podium, and all those good things. It's just an awesome community.
Gosh, you guys, you make me want to think about trying it. Somebody,
I'll make you a deal, Clinton.
Get a listener out there. Get a listener out there to let me borrow a bike next year. Maybe I'll try it. I'm not doing it on my Slash though. I don't care what tires are on there.
Clinton, I got a hardtail for you.
Give the
No, I'm
50
not doing
a
it on your
try
stupid
first.
single speed 29er plus stash either. Got to be like a legit cross country bike.
It was the best hardtail ever.
Whatever. Hey, Brian, look, I have it on good authority that there's going to be an enduro out in the Berryman Bass area of the Ozark Trail probably next year. You gonna race it?
I might.
I mean, you're the king out there.
Is Matt putting it on or helping put it on or? I want to say
he's probably gonna be involved.
I'll just say that he and I were comparing notes over the weekend. I was giving him all my intel on potential segments to include. You know, there's a lot of like off the beaten. If you ever just kind of use Strava segment explorer down there, there's several. I mean, obviously I've put a lot of segments on the trail proper, but there's several other kind of obscure ones down there that use a combination of the surrounding roads and trails together that would be kind of interesting just to kind of lengthen some of the segments. Because for the most part, the trail doesn't go to the highest points of the area like the road does. So
right.
If you start off on the road and then duck into the trail, you can get some.
Yeah. I'm sure I never really even thought of that. I mean, that peak there at W Highway and Floyd Tower Road, that's way up there. I mean, I'm sure there's something around there. What bike would you pick though to race that? Would you just run your Top Fuel and?
I'd probably do the Fuel.
Oh yeah. Would you switch? Wonder what tires would you use? We don't have to lock you in on that, but I am curious.
Maybe throw an XR4 on the front, just to beef it up, but I probably wouldn't change much in the back.
Interesting. All right. We'll have to get Kyle in on that too. We should make a deal right now. If Brian races it, Kyle has to race it too.
How are those two in the same category at all?
Well,
but whatever, I'll race it. I don't care. If enough of my friends are going to race, I will absolutely show up and slap high fives and eat little Debbies with you guys. I don't care.
I was gonna say I'll probably get my sister to race it. She's been out there a couple times with me, and she enjoys it a lot. It's just her finding time to ride enough. When she can ride and when I can ride are like never the same time. So
yeah, at that point I'll have a 6-month-old, so I'll probably be looking for anything I possibly can to get out of the house for a whole day.
Even you'd be willing to suffer just to get away from the baby.
Yes, I would do a 12-hour cross country race probably at that point.
All right.
Yeah. Anything to increase, to me, awareness and visibility to the great wealth of resources we have down there. I mean, Berryman, everyone knows about Berryman. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't know about what else is available down there. But, if it gets some new people to notice, the Ozark Trail in general, and if it drives new membership to the Ozark Trail Association, and, what's like, rising tides lifts all the boats. So I'm all for it.
Now I think I'll wrap this up here in just a minute because we're getting close to an hour, and I don't want to keep you super long, but I think you told me you've either got a Slash or a Remedy as well.
I had a Remedy.
You had one, okay.
Yeah, and I had to get a warranty frame replacement, and they stopped making the 29-inch Remedy by then.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said earlier, I like having that flexibility to change the wheels back and forth. So I didn't want to change wheel sizes. So I already had a Fuel. I was like, well, let's try the Slash. So threw a 160 Fox fork on the front of it. So I got 160, 150 Slash. I do have a dropper post on that.
Yeah, I think so. I think we have the same. We have essentially the same bike.
Yeah.
And now I just got the hardware's up at Momentum. Also bad news on that front. I've been scheming to try to get someone from St. Louis this weekend. If anybody's coming down to ride in this area, to bring me some bolts, but the 100 Acre Wood rally car race is this Friday and Saturday. So apparently like Berryman Road and Floyd Tower Road are like closed.
The 100 Acre Wood is this weekend?
I had no idea, Kyle. Yeah.
They're not advertising. I go to that every year. I need to go.
I guess they're not advertising for spectators. So
yeah, the one that is it the same name that they use in the spring? Don't they have another one in the springtime?
Well, it got canceled.
Usually it's like February, March. Usually it's cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a Rally America. Yeah, it's a Rally America stage rally race.
But so I guess I'm gonna have to wait till next week to get my bolts.
I assume that they don't want to or don't race on pavement.
No, it's like they run it like an enduro. So the transfer stages are on pavement. So technically all the cars have to be road legal, and then they get timed on the dirt roads, gravel roads, and stuff like that. But then they transfer from stage to stage on public paved roads.
Yeah. So I mean, the reason I say that is because, you know, I've been down there when they're running the race, and I know that they used to race on that stretch from, like you're talking about, like W and Floyd Tower, but back out to Berryman Campground. But that's all paved now.
Paved now, yeah. Yeah, I don't know exactly what. I just have to look at the details. I would imagine you could at least get to Berryman Campground. I don't understand that shouldn't be closed off, that road there. There's no reason that would be closed.
You can get to either of the campgrounds.
If I get this published tomorrow, please someone bring me my bolts, because I got a new shock for my bike, but I can't mount it without the bolts, and they weren't in on Tuesday when I was up there. So
Clinton, I'll let you know. I didn't know the 100 Acre Wood was this weekend. I might end up coming down Saturday. I'll let you know if I do.
Now we're talking. That's my guy right there.
Stage rally racing, man. You got my attention.
Go pick up those bolts tomorrow. Do not head south without those bolts. All right.
Gotcha.
Brian, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
My pleasure. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the invite.
And hopefully, you know, maybe if we get a handful of people out of this that are like, okay, you know, I'll go give one of these give one of my local cross country races a shot, you know, Cat 3 or whatever. That would be great. I'm all for it. I watched round 1 of the World Cup XC. I watched the women's, and I was watching the men's race, and then we had to come down here and podcast. So I don't know. I've found myself a little more into it just because I like racing bicycles, and I'd love to have a maybe not a true XC bike, but you know, a downcountry bike. Maybe a top fuel, but with some slightly more aggressive tires on it, something like that.
There you go.
That would be excellent. So I think that's it for this week, boys. Brian, Kyle, anything you want to add?
No, man, you guys are getting me pumped up to go ride a bike right now. I haven't ridden besides pump track and dirt jumps and BMX track in like weeks now. My main trail bike's been in pieces, so I need to get out and get some miles in.
Hey, I think you need to throw an invite for Brian to borrow a pump track bike and join us.
Hey, no, for real.
Really?
So constant open invite. I have a slew of different dirt jump bikes that you would be more than welcome and encouraged to come out and ride. If you want to do a night at the BMX track or the pump track, let me know. I'll gladly bring one out for you.
It's super fun, Brian.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm up there every Tuesday, so
let's do that. Let's do Tuesday. Brian, I'll shoot you a message on Facebook come Tuesday, and if you can make it, I'll put a bike in the truck for you.
All right, sounds good.
All right, guys. Thanks for doing this. I appreciate it. And thanks for listening, everybody. You can get us at okayestmtb@gmail.com. Check us out on Facebook. That's it. We're out of here. Send us more suggestions. And I think eventually we're going to try to get Steve Friedman on here. Kind of a local. In my mind, he's the most well-known mountain biker between Houston, Texas, and probably like Chicago, Illinois. Somehow, everybody knows him. I've never been anywhere where people didn't know who he was. So hopefully we'll get him on here soon. All right, see you guys.
See you on the trail.
Thanks, guys.